a book that was known in the time of Jesus, referenced in the New Testament, and then almost vanished from the Christian world for more than 1,000 years. Many believed it had been lost forever. Yet, in the highlands of Ethiopia, generations of monks quietly copied and preserved this book century after century. That book was the Book of Enoch. This is the true story of one of the most remarkable survival stories in biblical history. The name Enoch appears very early in the Bible. In Genesis chapter 5, Scripture records a remarkable detail. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Genesis 5:24, KJV. Unlike the other figures in the genealogy, Enoch is not simply described as dying. Instead, he is said to have walked with God and then was taken away. This mysterious description made Enoch a fascinating figure in ancient Jewish tradition. Over the centuries, stories, visions, and teachings associated with his name were collected into a work known today as First Enoch. The book describes angels, heavenly journeys, divine judgment, and dramatic visions of the spiritual world. One of the most surprising facts about the Book of Enoch is that it was not completely unknown to the writers of the New Testament. In the Epistle of Jude, we read, "Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all." Jude 14-15, KJV. Scholars have long noted that this passage closely resembles a passage found in First Enoch. This suggests that at least some early believers were familiar with the book. However, being quoted does not necessarily mean that a book was considered scripture. Even so, the influence of Enoch within early Jewish and Christian thought is difficult to ignore. During the early centuries of Christianity, different communities used various religious texts. Over time, biblical canons became more clearly defined. Most churches did not include the Book of Enoch in their official canon. As a result, copies became increasingly rare. Throughout Europe, the book gradually disappeared. For centuries, people knew of Enoch only through brief quotations and references preserved by ancient writers. Many scholars believed the complete work had been lost forever. But in another part of the world, the story was very different. While the Western world slowly forgot the book, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church continued to preserve it. Unlike most Christian traditions, the Ethiopian Church accepted First Enoch as part of its biblical canon. Manuscripts were carefully copied in Ge'ez, the ancient liturgical language of Ethiopia. One generation passed it to the next. Through wars, through changing kingdoms, through centuries of history, the Book of Enoch survived. What makes this even more remarkable is that Ethiopian Christians did not view Enoch as a hidden or forbidden text. For them, it remained a normal part of their scriptural tradition. In the 18th century, Scottish explorer James Bruce traveled to Ethiopia. During his journey, he discovered complete manuscripts of the Book of Enoch. He brought copies back to Europe. For Western scholars, the discovery was astonishing. A book many believed had vanished from history was still being preserved in Ethiopia. Thanks to these manuscripts, the Book of Enoch began to be translated and studied once again. But the strongest evidence of its ancient origins was still yet to come. In 1947, an archaeological discovery changed everything. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in caves near Qumran, close to the Dead Sea. Among thousands of ancient manuscript fragments, scholars discovered portions of the Book of Enoch. This was a groundbreaking discovery. It proved that the Book of Enoch existed centuries before the time of Jesus. In other words, it was not a medieval invention. It was a genuine ancient text that circulated during the Second Temple period of Jewish history. These fragments also confirmed that the Ethiopian tradition had preserved a work with very deep historical roots. Today, most Christian denominations do not consider the Book of Enoch to be part of the biblical canon. However, scholars continue to regard it as an extremely valuable historical document. The book helps us understand how many ancient Jews thought about angels, divine judgment, the Messiah, and the spiritual realm. It also provides important background for ideas that appear in the New Testament. For this reason, even though it is not accepted as scripture by most Christians, Enoch remains one of the most important sources for understanding the world of the Bible. The story of the Book of Enoch is not the story of a book that was destroyed and later revived. It is the story of a book that survived in a place few people expected. While much of the world forgot it, Ethiopian monks continued copying and preserving its pages. Then, centuries later, archaeological discoveries near the Dead Sea confirmed that the text truly belonged to the ancient world. From the caves of Qumran to the monasteries of the Ethiopian highlands, the journey of the Book of Enoch stands as one of history's most fascinating stories of preservation and survival. And perhaps that is why the Book of Enoch continues to captivate historians, scholars, and curious readers around the world today.